Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that gets lost on a lot of people. And this is one of the reasons that I don't discuss nutrition here a lot, because anytime you discuss nutrition, someone's going to think you're wrong. Even if what you're giving out is advice by registered sports dietitians who work with some of the best athletes in the world, and even the advice given to elite level athletes who are winning the Super Bowl and winning gold medals, who are strong and jacked, like with their actual sports dietitians and stuff, say you're going to be wrong, because that just can't possibly be right because of whatever fad diet or trends going on in the bodybuilding world or diet world or whatever community fringe diets out there. But the point is, when we look at all the data and then we understand at least basic sports nutrition, we know that usually things go better if we eat mostly whole foods. And we know that protein needs are critical, but they're not as high as, say, the bodybuilding world has made it out to be. And this is when it's been studied, even looking at bodybuilders, right? There have been studies that look at people who are serious strength trainers, competitive power lifters, NFL players, right? Even competitive bodybuilders and things. The data has been overwhelmingly conclusive that when you're trying to gain muscle, the upper cap, which seems to produce any extra muscle gains, is about 1.6 kilos per gram of body weight. And that's assuming mixed sources. That's not, when you say that, people will say, oh, well, that must mean purely your animal products or your really high quality proteins. Well, no, not necessarily. That's usually mixed protein. That's with a lot of it coming from plants, a lot of it from animals, when it's all mixed. Because I don't want this to get promoted as me saying that vegan diets are viable, because they really aren't. But that's another topic. That's another topic completely. You have to supplement such an insane amount to make a vegan diet even remotely applicable for serious athletes that it gets absurd. But that aside, that's your number. And a lot of the guys who are trying to gain out there, they're going to be lighter than me. So at 219, which I'm down to, I've been eating this way and I'm down to 219 and I've hit some pretty good PRs along the way. So it's fair to say I haven't lost muscle. And who knows what I'll weigh by the time this video comes out. It'll probably be less. But I eat a very, very high calorie, high carb, whole foods diet right now. Well, how hard is it for me to get that protein? And I want people to step back and realize that even though these numbers, some of the calories might seem high, it's going to scale. People are going to need less protein who weigh less than me. Hey, if you're only 70 kilos and you're trying to gain, you only need, 70 times 1.6. That's even easier to get. But all of you out there who are training, and that's the main point, you're not training very hard and you're not very active if you only need 2,200 calories or something. So in my case, I'm losing weight, slowly losing weight, eating more than 3,000 calories a day. In fact, I was eating 3,500 every day during the week where I dropped from 221 to 219 and whooshed down. So what do we mean that it's easy to get this? It's easy to get the protein from whole foods. Well, your carb sources alone. Because what people have to remember, why do we add extra fat to our diets for athletes? Well, usually because some people struggle to get enough calories. Well, what if you're someone who has a high appetite and you don't struggle? Well, you could just eat lower fat. Carbs are usually what we need for training fuel. If we're going to train really hard with a lot of volume, you're not going to do that too well on a keto diet. You're going to have carb days. And before people come in and say, well, someone could just do this, and they'll tell me the same thing. Why don't you just do whatever carb night? And it's like, because I don't benefit from the dietary fat, eating large amounts of it, if I'm not trying to gain weight. And that's the same for anyone else. Like the reason you need large amounts of fat, oftentimes in your diet at certain points, is because it's hard for you to hit your calories otherwise. And it's a perfectly viable source of calories. But if you don't struggle to eat, it's a non-issue. You could just do carbs all the time. They're better training fuel. They're better for recovery than fat is. but they're not as calorically dense. So if you're someone who has no trouble eating whole foods, and again, you skinnier guys are going to have to load more fat in if you're struggling to eat. But in my case, let's go with 4 of my favorite carbohydrate sources, and you start adding that incidental protein up. So if I eat 600 calories of oats, that's about 20 grams of protein. Okay, 600 calories. Okay, a couple pounds of potatoes. A couple pounds of potatoes has around 18 grams of protein at about 750 calories. I'm just ballparking this. Let's say I eat 350 calories of beans, because I like to do fat-free refried beans and stuff too. I'll mix those into certain things. 21 grams of protein. Brown rice, 1 dry cup, 600 calories, 12 grams of protein. You start adding this up, like let's say that that's exactly what you eat. Okay? That exact number I just gave out. Well, what is that? That's about 2,300 calories. Well, that's over 70 grams of protein. In fact, when I throw it into Chronometer, those similar numbers, it comes out to be like 75 grams of protein. Well, at 100 kilos, how much do I need to maximize muscle growth? And I'm telling you guys that is what the studies show, that going over that doesn't seem to be even correlated with more muscle. That's your threshold. Everything beyond that is pretty much an insurance policy. So I need 160 grams of protein. Well, 75 of it every day has come from carbohydrate sources because I'm eating whole foods. What happens if I throw about 500 calories of chicken breast in there? Because I only need another 85 grams. Let's say I throw chicken breast in there that has about 100 grams of protein. 100 grams of protein. Roughly a pound of chicken, maybe a little bit less. 2 really big chicken breasts thrown in throughout the day. I'm at 175 grams. What's my calorie? My calories are lower than my deficit. So do you guys understand what I'm saying here? That it's very, very easy. Because if you do the math, that's 2,800 calories. I've been losing weight on calories as high as 3,500, slowly losing weight. Now, again, keeping in mind scaling it to body weight and size and muscle mass. And a lot of people will say, well, that's too much for me. I gain weight on 2,500. Well, you could cut some of the potatoes out. Right? So if I cut out 300 calories of the potatoes and I lose about 9 grams of protein, what do we have left? I would still be, even at those 2,500 calories, if I just remove some potatoes. And let's say that's your calorie intake because you're a smaller guy. That's still exceeding my protein threshold. All right, they'll say even we lose 10 grams, 10 grams of protein from that. That's 165. Well, if you're a smaller guy who needs 2,500 because you weigh 160 pounds, you've exceeded your protein needs still by something like 40 grams. You've exceeded your amount to gain muscle. What people need to grasp is that your protein is cumulative. All of this adds up. So it still balances all out. So some people say, well, some of those plant proteins might not be as good, but if you're throwing in a bunch of meat or dairy, it's going to balance out. And this is what the data shows. It's the mixed protein source is when we can get away with these slightly lower amounts. Now, if you were getting all of your protein from 1 or 2 foods, in particular if they weren't the highest quality protein, okay, it could be a little different. But in this case, when we're doing mixed proteins like this, and you're getting half or more of your protein still from your animal products, it adds up really, really quickly. It adds up very, very quickly. And especially as soon as you start throwing in lower calorie animal products, if you throw in leaner protein sources, whether it's lean meat, fat-free dairy, those numbers start climbing real fast. Hey, it becomes a lot easier to hit your numbers than people think. That's why when you're on a whole foods diet, it just isn't that big of a deal because number one, it's easier to get protein in when you're eating whole foods because all of your foods are higher in protein anyways. Okay, they're higher in protein anyways when you're eating all these whole foods. You also have a higher thermic effect from it, so you end up needing slightly more calories. And because people's protein needs are lower than the bodybuilding world has tried to convince them that they are. And again, this data is good on this, and I'm telling you, go do research on it. Even with people who are into bodybuilding and things like that, I think you guys would be surprised. A lot of them point out, yeah, the data actually is, a lot of this is on people who train really hard. It's actually serious lifters. It's not just, oh, Joe goes to the gym twice a week and goofs off. That's what's been found. And that's not saying that we need a low protein diet, because that protein intake is a high protein intake. That is considered to be a high protein diet by every expert. So just perspective, guys, something to think about. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.